Hey guys, and welcome to my Protection Paladin PvP guide. This guide will be going over abilities, talents, honor talents, Azerite traits, and rotation, and just kind of be describing at least my experience as a Prot Pally while I've been doing this for, I guess, pre-patch of Legion, because it was good at the pre-patch of Legion, and then all of BFA for the most part. But yeah, I'll be going over Prot Pally, so if you guys like it, be sure to share it and do all that random YouTube shenanigans stuff. But jumping right into it for talents first. Holy Shield is, in my opinion, the best in this row. Blessed Hammer is really only used for PvP. Avenger Shield can be good, but it just increases your block. Ideally, you want to take Holy Shield all the time because it increases your block chance by 15%, and now you can block spells, which, in other words, means you can take, let's see, 40% reduced damage on spells whenever those hit you, and this includes damage over time effects, and it'll also reflect holy damage towards the attacker. So, something to, you should probably just take this. If you take the other two, you're not going to have a fun time. Unless you want to, then you might. Anyway, for level 30 row, Crusader Judgment is usually what's taken every time here. I've played with one charge of Judgment on my leveling Paladin, and it feels horrendous. So this is what I always take here. Judgment now has 2 charges, and Grand Crusader now also grants a charge of Judgment. I really don't ever spec out of this. If you ever spec out of this, I'd say you're going to regret it. If you do, however, go into First Avenger, because it'll make your Avenger shield hit about as hard as a Judgment. For the 45 row, I always take Fist of Justice, just because it reduces the cooldown on your stun, and yeah, that's all you really need to know. Other than that, you have Repentance, which just pretty much saps someone, and then you have Blinding Light, which just pretty much blinds someone on a 1.5 minute cooldown. I just overall think Fist of Justice is the best here. For the 60 row, it's pretty much between Cavalier and Blessing of Spell Warding. Blessing of Spell Warding is pretty much the go-to / take every time ability on this row. Pretty much gives any friendly target a bubble. I'll use it right here. Immune to magical damage and harmful effects. So, you pretty much won't take that much damage whenever this is up. It's pretty much a bubble you can cast as anyone. It's like Blessing of Protection, except, you know, usable on an ally. And can't be spell stolen from what I'm aware of, unless some mage just hasn't spell stolen this the whole time, but, you know, that's just me. Anyway, 75, Hand of the Protector pretty much lets you use your heal on people that aren't just yourself, so usually whenever you have your heal as a Prot Pally, you can only use it on yourself, you can't cast it on allies. When you go into Hand of Protector, it switches it to a be able to cast on ally heal, also reduces the cooldown by 2 seconds, which is really not that much, but it is something. And that's all it really does. Just lets it so you can cast on other people, which is really good for Arena and Battlegrounds if you're trying to off-heal healers. The other choice here would probably be Unbreakable Spirit, reduces the cooldown of your Divine Shield, Ardent Defender, Lay on Hands. The main cooldown reduction here that you're kind of wanting to pay attention to is Ardent Defender, which reduces the cooldown, which reduces the damage you take by 20% and also brings you back to life if you take fatal damage. For the 90 row, for PvP at least, it's either... You can really take any of these. I like this just for the heal because it's passive healing you don't really have to think about, and if you apply it to multiple targets, it really adds up over time. Consecrated Ground is another one that is very, very good because it increases the area of your consecration, and while you are standing in a consecration, you take reduced damage. It also buffs your Hammer of Reckoning, which I'll get to later, and it also slows people if you take this talent, which is pretty much the only slow you'll ever have as a Prot Pally. Other than that, the only slow you have is pretty much Hodge, which, I mean, it slows them by not letting them play the game, so... For the other ability, Aegis of Light. Protects you and your allies, all standing within 10 yards behind you for 6 seconds, reducing all damage taken by 20%. Can be good. Never see people take it. Haven't used it myself, so that's why I don't take it. For the 100 row, at least for PvP-wise, you're always going to be taking Righteous Protector. Shield of the Righteous, it reduces the remaining cooldown on Light of Protector, which is your heal, and Avenging Wrath, which is your wings, by 3 seconds. This adds up very, very fast over time, especially on wings, and it helps a shit ton with your heal. So let's say you're in a desperate situation, and you throw your heal out. So that heal is on a 12-second cooldown. You use one shield, one shield, one shield, it's back up. And that just pretty much gets rid of the cooldown. And then whenever you Judgment, it reduces the cooldown of your Shield of the Righteous as well, by 2 seconds. So you'll see where this all kind of weaves in together, eventually into the rotation. Going over honor talents, for the first one, Gladiator's Medallion, because that's always kind of taken. For the second one, I've seen people take Sacred Duty because it reduces the cooldown of your Bop or Blessing of Sacrifice by 33%, and this will make this a 2-minute cooldown instead of a 3-minute cooldown. For Battlegrounds, however, I do take Judgments of the Pure whenever you cast Judgment, which is a shit ton. Whenever you cast Judgment on an enemy, a nearby ally within 40 yards is healed for 5,000 about, which is a good amount of health. Pretty much slightly above about 3 ticks of a heal over time, if my thinking is correct. So, I don't know, I just take this all the time because it's just extra healing that your team gets, and in some situations it is healing towards yourself if there are no allies within your range. The next ability I always take is Guardian of Forgotten Kings. This pretty much replaces Guardian of the Ancient Kings, which I'm pretty sure just reduces the damage you take by 50% or makes you immune. I don't know what the original ability does, but this one changes it pretty much to Blessing of Spell Warding, which is the blessing that you can make an ally immune. You can cast this on any ally, it pretty much makes them immune to damage for 10 seconds. You'll notice a constant theme here of being immune to damage with a Proud Pally. If you cast all of these blessings and all of these immunities on yourself, you have about 30 seconds of damage slash just immunity in general, which is really, really broken in my opinion, but let's keep that on the low. Next thing, Shield of Virtue. When activated, your next Avenger's Shield will interrupt and silence all enemies within 8 yards of the target. Very, very good. Really good for Arena. You'll find that the only 2 classes that really have a blanket interrupt now are Shadow Priest and Proud Pally, which is a little odd to give it to Proud Pally, but I'm not really complaining here. Going over honor talents that could be worth taking. Guarded by the Light. Your Flash of Light reduces all damage a target receives by 20% for 6 seconds, stacks up to 2 times. If you can somehow weave your Flash of Light on someone every, 6 seconds to give them a 20% damage reduction at all times, this would be really good. However, it's kind of your devotion to, I guess, maintaining this buff that makes it a viable choice or not. Other than that, I suppose that's about it when it comes to this. I've taken Warrior of Light before. Increases the damage done by your Shield of the Righteous by 30%, so it'll be doing about, let's say, 3.2k damage instead of 2.5k, which is only 700 damage buff. But the downside of this is that it reduces the armor granted by 30%. And 30% armor reduction is a lot when it comes to the armor that it actually provides, 7,500. So take that down by 30%, you're only getting about 5,000 armor. And with this buff, you have about a 66% damage reduction. Without that extra, or without the current armor and the 30% damage reduction or armor reduction, you'd probably be looking at about 60% damage reduction instead of about 66%, and that 6% kind of does add up over time. Yeah, that's the talents. We'll go over abilities now. And really, as a Proud Pally, your playstyle is an interesting one. You play like a DPS, but a very reserved DPS. And you'll see what I mean by this. So, I'm just thinking about the best way to address this. As a Proud Pally, your heals do increased healing the lower health the target is, or the lower health the person you're healing is. This comes into effect a lot in PvP. I usually don't use my heal on anyone or myself unless they're about 60% health or lower. I wish I could just do fall damage, like just inflict the damage onto myself, but I don't really know how to do that other than emotionally, so we'll go over just kind of the healing that gets you through fights and helps allies, and then the kind of single target damage. So going over the damage part, I guess, to start out with. Your only abilities that really do good damage are Judgment, Avenger's Shield, and Shield of the Righteous. Over time, your Hammer of Reckoning, which is this ability, and your Consecration will do damage, but not nearly as much as Judgment. So, going over just Judgment real quick, I'm just going to throw it at this guy so you guys can see how much damage it does. About 6,000. 6,000 non-crit. 6,000 non-crit. It also heals people whenever I throw it out, and that's why I take this Judgment thing that heals people, because you're throwing Judgments a lot, and it has a really low cooldown. Something to keep in mind is that whenever you are Judgmenting, you'll see the cooldown of Shield of the Righteous does get reduced a little bit. You'll see it again here. It'll jump from about the middle right there to about right there. So again, the cooldown of Shield of the Righteous is reduced every time you use your Judgment. So this obviously means you're going to be using Judgment as much as possible because it does very high damage, and also it reduces the cooldown of one of your main abilities, which is also built into your defensives, which increases your armor, and your armor reduces the damage you take. It all comes together in like a very unique kit, which is really not really replicated, especially currently in BFA. Avenger's Shield, pretty much, I don't think it silences unless you use this. I don't... Hurls a shield, enemy target, holy damage interrupting and silencing the non-player target. So it doesn't interrupt players. Increases the effects of your Shield of the Righteous by 20%. So if buff your Shield of the Righteous does damage, the only way to interrupt someone with this is Shield of the Virtue, which is the honor taunt that I talked about earlier. Other than that, it's just a ranged kind of damage ability that you can throw off. Another thing to keep in mind is that your Shield of the Righteous and Judgment share the same range, 30 yards, which is very, very long for, you know, prot. Keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that Shield of the Righteous, you don't actually have to hit someone to gain any of the bonuses that it gives. You just have to use it, and you gain that 7,000 armor. Let's go over kind of Consecration. So Consecration, it's not really a huge part of prot, but it is. Mastery reduces all damage while inside your Consecration by 5%. If you have Consecration down and Shield of the Righteous down, you are taking 70% reduced physical damage. It's just something to keep in mind there. Also, whenever you're in Consecration, your Hammer of the Righteous will hit extra damage for holy damage. Not really a significant amount, but it does hit extra holy damage. The main reason you're using Hammer of the Righteous is to gain Judgment procs and Grand Crusader procs. So let's say I'm hitting this guy. We're just hitting him, we're using all of our Judgment procs, using all of our Judgment procs. Hopefully we get a proc here. There we go. So you'll notice I got a proc here. You see these two shields right here? That means I got a free Judgment proc, and my Avenger shield is back off cooldown. This is pretty much what your whole kind of rotation revolves around. Doing damage, getting Judgment procs, healing yourself, and then making sure your Shield of the Righteous is used to reduce the cooldown of your heal. So, you guys have seen me probably just run around into giant groups in Battlegrounds. There's a reason behind this. With all these immunities, Blessing of Spell Warding makes you immune to damage. Lay on Hands grants you max health. Guardian of Forgotten Queen grants you immunity to damage. Bubble grants you immunity to damage. Ardent Defender reduces damage you take, also reses you if you die. Shield of the Righteous increases armor, reduces damage you take. Hand the Protector heals you based on missing health. All of this just comes together in a really nice way. Talking about cooldowns as well. If you don't know, Avenging Wrath has gotten changed not only to increase the damage you do and healing you do, but also increases your critical strike chance by 20%. This is really useful as a prot pally as well, because when you crit with Avenger's Wrath and your Hand of the Protector, I've hit upwards of 100,000 heals. Instant casts, which will always have a reduced cooldown whenever you're using Shield of the Righteous. So I suppose we'll try and display this as best as we can, without, I guess, you know, taking good damage. So, as I've mentioned before, Hand of the Protector, it heals more based on someone's missing health. If you're not missing much health, you're not really going to be healed that much. I'm going to try and showcase, I guess, the healing here, even though I'm not missing health and kind of the base rotation. So let's say there's just like 5 billion people on me. You're going to want to use Judgment just to have that off cooldown. Really, if there's 5 people on me, you want to start with Shield of the Righteous to reduce that damage you take. You'll notice Shield of the Righteous will get its cooldown reduced every time I use Judgment. If you're having a lot of people attack you, you want to maintain your Shield of the Righteous as much as possible. You'll see the cooldown of Shield of the Righteous does just get reduced over time. If you ever get low on health, you're going to want to use Hand of the Protector. Hand of the Protector heals just an instant heal. It also has its cooldown reduced by 3 seconds whenever you use your Shield of the Righteous. You'll see here, I'll use Hand of the Protector again just to get the cooldown going, and then I'll use it followed by a Shield of the Righteous, and immediately the cooldown's about halfway done. So yeah, this is the rotation. Pretty much we're using Hammer of the Righteous to get extra Judgment procs and Avenger Shield procs, because those Judgments reduce the cooldown of your Shield of the Righteous. Whenever you use Shield of the Righteous, it reduces the cooldown on your self-heal, which you're either using on yourself or healers most of the time. One thing I have noticed with prot is that whenever you are trying to get those Grand Crusader procs or the Judgment procs, I feel like they do proc more when you do have your Consecration down, and your Hammer of the Righteous are hitting multiple people with the baseline physical damage and also the extra holy damage while standing into a Consecration. So, again here, I'll kind of showcase healing. Let's see how much I heal for. 59,000. That could heal up to 200% more, which is, I don't know, 150,000 around there. So we'll see. Cooldown is finished on Hand of Protector because I used so many Shield of the Righteouses. We'll use it again. Hopefully we'll get a proc here to reduce the cooldown of Shield of the Righteous a little more. There we go. Get another Hand of Protector off. No procs here yet. There's a Judgment proc. You'll see we'll use another Judgment. Cooldown is finished on Shield of the Righteous. So this is what I was talking about prot. It has a very unique kit. in the fact that it does really good damage. As for a tank, it does really good damage, because I don't know, you have like one damaging ability, but your damaging ability can do so much damage. Judgment, average hit 7,000 while I was hitting that target. This hits harder than some DPS abilities, from what I'm aware of, and what I've noticed. So, that's kind of prot, at least the abilities. Going over talents / traits, traits. Don't really know what to take here. Gonna be honest, I just take whatever. This one's nice, absorbs damage. If you had 3 of those, you'd just absorb 25,000 damage every time you vend your shield, which would be really nice. I have this one, which increases my mastery. Mastery increases my attack power, also reduces the damage I take, and increases the chance that I block melee attacks. And then I have this stupid one, which gives me strength, gives me health, and is a really shitty one. But, yeah, you could also take this one, which I have thought about taking. Judgment deals additional damage when your health percentage exceeds... When your health percentage exceeds the target's up to 2,000 additional damage. This could be really good, because you're most of the time going to have a lot of health as a Ret Pally. And, you're probably going to have more health than the enemy you're hitting. And this will just only buff your hard-hitting ability, and your only ability that hits hard. So I don't really see a downside to this. However, I always take this just because it's my highest item level, and it gives me strength, so I don't know, up to you here, but... Just look at traits, see which one works the best. I'm pretty sure this is a Ret trait, but since traits are so fucked, honestly, it could work for Prot too, and it probably does. I know there's a few traits on... I think it's this guy. I think this is a Ret trait as well, but I use it for Prot, just because it's so nice. Yeah, so this is a Ret trait, but I mean it works. You'll see here. Mastery increased by 524. Reduced damage. Increased attack power by about 10%. Reduced damage while in consecration by about 2%, I believe. Yeah, so that's just something to keep in mind. You can use, I guess, the wrong spec traits for your own spec, even though that's really not how it should work, but it is how it works. And, yeah, I guess we'll go over what I haven't covered, which really isn't much. Cleanse Toxins can remove poisons and disease effects, really good against Assassination and Unholy Death Knights. Blessing of Sacrifice pretty much transfers damage from a target onto you, which is pretty useful since you are healing yourself, and obviously, if you take that damage, you're going to be blocking some of it, I believe. Not 100% sure. Divine Shield is a shield, Flash of Light is a heal, Hammer of Justice is a stun, Hand of Reckoning is just a taunt that used to do damage but no longer does. Rebuke, obviously you have an interrupt. Grand Crusader, when you avoid a melee attack or use Hammer of the Righteous, which is your kind of filler ability, you have a 15% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on Avenger's Shield. This is where the 30-row thing comes into play. Judgment now has 2 charges, and also Grand Crusader now also grants a charge of Judgment. So whenever you proc this, you're going to be getting Judgments. Judgment reduces the cooldown of Shield of the Righteous. Shield of the Righteous reduces the cooldown of Hand of the Protector, which is your main heal. So hopefully you see kind of a pattern here, where abilities reduce the cooldown of other abilities that tend to be useful to you. Use Judgment as much as you can, because that'll reduce the cooldown of Shield of the Righteous as much as it will, which, in effect, gives you more armor, and also reduces the cooldown of your heal. Heart of the Crusader, increases mounted speed, and that's your mastery. I don't really think there's anything else to cover here. We can go over just, I guess, what I do to burst someone. Usually when I burst someone, I always start out with, here, Wings, my Trinket, 1 Judgment, a stun, and then another Judgment, Shield of the Righteous just for damage, and then you kind of just go into using your Consecration, your Avenger Shield, and then your filler abilities, and then you hope you get procs. If you don't get procs, I mean, it's just that way sometimes. There's really nothing you can do about it. Admittedly, I use Shield of the Righteous procs offensively, however, most of the time you want to save them for defensive purposes, because they really don't do much damage, and the purpose of this is just to, I guess, avoid damage, and be able to reduce the cooldown of your heal. But, yeah, that's Prot Pally, guys. I know a lot of people fucking hate Prot Pally right now, but I'm having a blast with it. I played it in Cataclysm a lot. I played Prot Pally Twink in the 60 bracket for at least 2 months, and it was just pure joy on my part. But anyway, if you guys like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, bell thing, description, all of that YouTube shenanigans. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys some other time.